Hello, I'm Dave Turo Shields coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana and Kenosis Counseling Center. I'm going to talk to you today about depression and substance abuse, and particularly alcohol abuse. You may not know, but up to 30% or higher depression sufferers struggle with substance abuse issues as well. We call that a dual diagnosis, and we often see that in the office. As folks start to self-medicate, they do so because they're trying to soothe feelings of self-worth, hopelessness, and despair. And if you happen to have anxiety along with your depression, the rate, 30% rate goes up. And anxiety sufferers will also self-medicate to try to bring relief to the anxiety. And we'll talk more about that. I'm going to be doing a series on anxiety very soon. Although depression sufferers use alcohol as a coping mechanism, over time we see increases in frequency and intensity of negative thoughts. We see increases in self-destructive behaviors. We know that alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, leads to lethargy, drowsiness, lower inhibitions, impaired judgment, and then finally, an increased risk for suicide attempt. And I know that in my depression, particularly in some of the darkest days, in 2011, I had a suicide attempt. Now, on that day, I had drank approximately 16 beers. Now, before the depression, I was a beer connoisseur. I made my own beer and was a connoisseur of other fine craft beers as well. But when I entered into depression, and I always had a problem with anxiety, but as I entered into a deep depression, I began to drink to cover up some of those symptoms and bring some relief to my anxiety and my depression. And it worked initially, but it began to create extra problems over time. And it became its own problem. I ended up getting treatment for both eventually, and it was very helpful that I did so. It's really important that if you're a depression sufferer who is abusing a substance as well, it's really important that you get treatment. And at Kenosis, we don't care how you come in. The recovery statistics show, the treatment research shows that it's best to get treated for both. However, we know that in our experience of over 30 years of treating folks, my wife and I know that folks often come in for one issue, and they want to work on that one issue, and they don't want to talk about the other issue. And so you can come in however you like, as long as you're honest with us and tell us about both issues. Or you can have a family member attend with you who will tell us about both issues, and you allow us to monitor the other issue. Now, oftentimes what happens is folks will come in and tell us about depression, and they don't want to talk about the alcohol use or the pot use or the other drug use, and that's okay as long as somebody tells us about that other use, because we will treat the depression as long as we see recovery from the depression, some good treatment progress from the depression. And what we won't do is we won't refer you to a psychiatrist for help with medication, because it's contraindicated. It doesn't work as long as you're abusing alcohol or some other substance. And so it just doesn't work. And so if we see a lack of progress treating the depression, we're going to want to focus more on the substance abuse. And I want to talk more openly about that at some point. And if you want to prove to us that the substance use is not a problem, then do whatever you can that we're asking of you on the depression treatment side. And if it doesn't work and we need to work on the substance abuse, it's okay. It's okay. It's hard work, but you'll get through it. Now, there may be folks out there who love somebody who has depression and a substance abuse problem. And you're wondering, how do I even get them to treatment for either or? And I'll talk more about that tomorrow. And we'll be talking about interventions for someone who's depressed in tomorrow's video. So that's all for tonight. The best to all of you, and God bless.